Dear students, let us discuss some important basic concepts of vector algebra. To begin with, let us discuss a scalar quantity. A quantity that involves only one value, which is a real number usually, is called a scalar quantity. For example, length, mass, time, distance, speed, area, volume, temperature, etc. are all examples of a scalar quantity. But a quantity that has both magnitude and direction is called a vector and is denoted by vector AB or vector A. In this picture, we can see a vector with 2 points A and B. Therefore, this is represented by vector AB or vector A. Initial point. A point A from where the vector starts is called the initial point. Here, this point A is the point where this vector starts. Therefore, this is the initial point of this vector A. Terminal point means here a point B where the vector ends is called the terminal point of this vector. Here, this is the point where this vector ends. Therefore, this is the terminal point of this vector A. Magnitude of a vector. The distance between the initial and terminal points of a vector is called the magnitude of a vector and is denoted like this: modulus of or magnitude of this vector AB or vector A. Here in this example, the distance between these 2 points, the initial point and terminal point, is equal to 5. Therefore, the magnitude of this vector A, it is equal to 5 in this example. Position vector of a point. Here we have 3 points A, B and P. Here we are discussing the position vector of these 3 points with respect to the origin. Here OA, OB and OP are the position vectors of these 3 points. OA, OB and OP are the position vectors of those 3 points. Now let's move on to equal vectors. 2 vectors are vector AB and vector CD are having same magnitude and same direction. 2 vectors A and B are said to be equal vectors if they have the same magnitude and direction, regardless of the position of their initial points. Vector A and vector B are equal vectors. Let us check by placing this point here on the other. We can see that these 2 vectors are coinciding one on the other, fitting exactly. Therefore, these are equal vectors. Equal vectors means vectors with the same magnitude and direction, regardless of their initial points. Negative of a vector. Here we have 2 vectors, that is AB and PQ. These are acting like this. Magnitudes are same, but with diametrically opposite directions. Here we can place this vector on this vector. We can see that their magnitudes are same, but the directions are reverse. Therefore, opposite to one another. Therefore, this vector is the negative of this vector, or this vector is the negative of this vector. Collinear vectors. Here we have 3 vectors like this. 2 or more vectors. Here 2 or more vectors are said to be collinear if they are parallel to the same line irrespective of their magnitude and direction. Once again, 2 or more vectors are said to be collinear if they are parallel to the same line irrespective of their magnitude and direction. So here we have 3 vectors. Here one vector, this is another vector, and here we have another vector here. So they are parallel to one another. We can place this vector here and this vector here, then we can see that their line of action is a single line. Therefore, such vectors like this, they are parallel to one another irrespective of the direction. These vectors are called collinear vectors. Co-initial vectors. We have two vectors, vector A and vector B, with same initial point A. That means AB and AC are two vectors with the same initial point. Therefore, these two vectors, vector A and vector B, are co-initial vectors. Unit vector. A vector whose magnitude is unity, that is 1 unit, is called a unit vector. Here the magnitude of this vector is equal to 3. We can convert the magnitude into 1 unit. Now it is B cap. It's a unit vector. Therefore, B cap is a unit vector in the direction of B. Therefore, a vector with magnitude 1 or unity is called unit vector. We can discuss some other unit vectors here. We can see J. This is a unit vector along this y-axis. J, unit vector along y-axis. Here K is a unit vector along this z-axis. Here we will discuss this unit vectors later. Therefore, this K here along this x-axis, we can have a unit vector called I. Therefore, I, J and K are the unit vectors along x-axis, y-axis and z-axis respectively. Here a unit vector means a vector with unit magnitude. The next is zero vector. Zero vector, a vector whose initial and terminal points coincide, is called a zero vector. Here the magnitude of this vector is B as before, but we can reduce the magnitude and finally we can convert it into a zero vector. That means we are coinciding, or we are making both the points coincide one on the other. Therefore, we are getting a zero vector, that is vector AA or BB are the representations of this zero vector. A zero vector, a vector with magnitude 0. Addition of vectors. Here triangle of addition. AB, vector AB plus vector BC is equal to vector AC, that is A plus B. Here vector A and B are represented by two sides of a triangle, then the third side is represented by the sum of those vectors. Therefore, here vector A and B are acting like this. Therefore, this vector, the third side, is the sum of these two vectors. Let's move on to the difference of vectors like this. Here at the beginning, the vector B is like this. Without changing its magnitude, by changing or reversing its direction, we will get negative of B. Therefore, this is vector A and this is vector negative B. Therefore, A negative B means A minus B. This is A minus B. Therefore, this is vector A minus vector B. That's all. Thank you.